Hey everybody, this is Andre here with the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video, we're going to be comparing the OnePlus Nord N100 to the LG K51. So the OnePlus Nord N100 has a 6.52-inch 90Hz IPS LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 269, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 82.9%. It has an 8 megapixel front-facing camera and a hole punch design that I really like a lot. The LG K51 has a 6.5-inch LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 264, and an aspect ratio of 19.5:9. This phone has a water drop front-facing camera that I'm not a huge fan of. I don't really like this design a lot. I think it's a little outdated and makes the bezel look thicker. And overall, I think the hole punch is a lot cleaner. That being said, this front-facing camera is 13 megapixels. So in terms of overall design, I definitely like the OnePlus Nord N100 a lot better. It has visibly thinner bezels and has a more sleek, modern look. The hole punch front-facing camera really adds to the look of the phone and makes it look a lot nicer, newer, and cleaner. Whereas with the LG K51, the bezels are on the thicker side. In fact, the whole phone really, especially compared to the Nord N100, is on the thicker side. And that water drop front-facing camera adds more bulk to the bezel of the phone. And overall, it doesn't look as clean or sleek or modern as the Nord N100. Now, the Nord N100 has 64 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and the LG K51 has 32 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion. Definitely the Nord N100 is going to have the edge here, as it has double the storage as the LG K51. To put this into perspective, the Nord N100 actually has the same amount of internal storage as an entry-level iPhone, but it even has an advantage over that phone because iPhones don't have microSD card expansion, whereas the Nord N100 does. To give you an idea of what this looks like, right now, the Nord N100 has 20.16 gigabytes being used, taking up 31% of the space. Now with the LG K51, 16.77 gigabytes is being used, which is significantly less than what's being used on the Nord N100, and that's taking up 52% of the space. Now that is a huge difference, and notice here that a great deal of that storage is actually from the system. 13 gigabytes you can't really even get out of using. So the bare minimum, absolute bare minimum with nothing, just right out of the factory, that's gonna be used on the LG K51 is 13 gigabytes out of 32. That is almost half the total space as it is. So that's quite a bit. So you can really see the value of having that extra 32 gigabytes. Still with only 64 gigabytes, that is a minimum in my opinion. With apps and the system getting larger and larger, I think 128 is the better amount, and unfortunately neither of these phones have it, but I do believe my honest prediction for the future is even the lower end entry-level phones are going to be moving up to 128 gigabytes of internal storage in the next few years, just because everything is just getting so much larger. And at the same time, technology advancing is allowing us to give devices larger storage so much easier. But that being said, for the sake of the comparison, I do think that 64 gigabytes is definitely a decent amount of storage as of now. And even if you do fill it up, you can use a microSD card to expand the storage, unlike phones like the iPhone where you can't. So that is an advantage. And overall, I would give the edge in storage clearly to the OnePlus Nord N100. Now, neither of these phones have wireless charging, but both of them have fingerprint scanners. These fingerprint scanners are located right at the back here in a really easy to reach spot, so that's really nice. We're going to test out each of them and see how they perform. Starting with the OnePlus Nord N100. There we go, one more time. And that was really fast and responsive, really impressive considering that each time I tried it out, I did put my finger in a weird spot that might have been a little bit harder to read, but it still opened with no problem. Now we're going to test the fingerprint scanner for the LG K51. One more time. There we go. And again, as you can see, I put my finger in some really weird spots just to see how well this thing can actually read my finger, and it did a really good job. Overall, these fingerprint scanners are both really reliable and really fast and responsive, so there's no problem there. If you want to open your phone fast, whether it's out of your pocket or in your pocket or whatever the situation might be, then these are definitely going to get the job done for you. Taking a look at the camera setups of these phones, the OnePlus Nord N100 has a 13 megapixel rear camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. The LG K51 has a 13 megapixel rear camera as well, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So the LG K51 does have the advantage of having an ultra wide camera. It's pretty disappointing that the Nord N100 doesn't have an ultra wide camera. It does have a macro, but I personally think an ultra wide camera is more useful. A macro camera really only has one purpose, whereas with an ultra wide camera, whether you're trying to take a picture of a large object, a group picture, you name it, an ultra wide camera has many different uses. Now I did a little test with these phones. This is a picture taken with the normal rear camera of the OnePlus Nord N100. The image is really crisp, the lighting is handled very well, and the colors are well balanced. Overall, I'm really impressed with the quality of this camera for such an entry-level phone. This is a picture taken with the camera of the LG K51. Now this is definitely not a bad picture either, but if you look really closely, you will see the quality is a little bit grainy, especially compared to the Nord N100. Surprisingly, the exposure is handled really well. In previous comparisons I've been doing with the Nord N100, many phones haven't really come close to the brightness of the photos taken by the Nord N100, but this phone actually is pretty close, and not only that, but the colors are really well balanced. That being said, I still do think the overall quality of the rear camera of the Nord N100 is a little bit better. Now these are pictures taken with the front-facing cameras of each phone. This is the front-facing camera of the Nord N100. The colors look really nice, the image quality is great, and the lighting is really natural looking. So I really like the quality of this front-facing camera. This is a picture taken with the front-facing camera of the LG K51. Now this camera is not bad, but the coloring is a little bit off. In comparison, the colors don't look quite as natural, and the image is a little bit dimmer, even though the pictures were taken in the same lighting. That being said, the image is still crisp, and I do think it's decent, just not quite as good as the front-facing camera of the OnePlus Nord N100. Now, I'm not going to be testing the macro camera of the Nord N100 or the ultra-wide camera of the LG K51, simply because only one of these phones has each of these features. So there's really not a whole lot to compare it to, but if you are interested in seeing how these cameras work on their respective phones, definitely check out the reviews of the phones on the channel. Both of these phones are able to shoot video in 1080p in both the front and rear cameras, so there's not going to be a whole lot of a difference there. So overall, I would give the edge to the OnePlus Nord N100 for the camera, just because I do think the image quality overall is a little bit better. Now internally, the OnePlus Nord N100 is getting 4 GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 460 processor. The LG K51 is getting 3 GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio P22 processor. We're going to do a quick demonstration to see which phone actually performs better. We're going to start by opening Google Chrome. So that was really close. We're going to try a web page. So there, the OnePlus Nord N100 was a little bit faster. We're going to try one more page. Once again, the OnePlus Nord N100 was faster. So overall, the OnePlus Nord N100 does have a slightly more powerful processor. Now, as you saw from the demonstration, the difference really wasn't that big. So either of these phones are going to be able to handle your basic activities pretty well. That being said, when it comes to more demanding things like photo editing and video streaming and playing games, then I would say the OnePlus Nord N100 would have an advantage with that extra gigabyte of RAM. And as you could see there, a little bit more processing power. It's going to be able to run those things a little bit more smoothly. Now, the OnePlus Nord N100 has a 5000 mAh battery that supports 18 watt fast charging, and the LG K51 has a 4000 mAh battery that doesn't support fast charging. This is definitely quite a significant difference. Not only is the OnePlus Nord N100 going to have more battery life per charge, but it's also going to degrade slower over time, so the phone itself is going to have more longevity. One more difference between these two that is very notable is that the OnePlus Nord N100 runs on Android 10, whereas the LG K51 runs on Android 9 Pie. That is a big difference, as Android 10 is a bit newer than Android 9 Pie, of course. So if you're looking for a later version of Android, that's something to consider. Now, in conclusion, which one of these phones is better? I would say that overall, based on its general features, especially stuff like the storage capacity, the OnePlus Nord N100 is the better phone. Not only does it have a 90 Hz display, which is gonna give it a bigger advantage over the LG K51, especially when it comes to content consumption, but it also has a better quality camera, a faster processor, a larger battery, and of course, a newer version of Android. The one advantage the LG K51 does have over the OnePlus Nord N100 is that it has an ultra-wide camera, but other than that, when you're comparing a lot more crucial differences, like the difference in storage, I really don't think it's worth giving up an extra 32 gigabytes of internal storage for an ultra-wide camera. So at the end of the day, even though the LG K51 isn't a bad phone in and of itself, compared to the OnePlus Nord N100, the OnePlus Nord N100 is the better device. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, definitely leave a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you want to get more information on the pricing and availability, again, definitely check the link in the description because pricing and availability is always changing. But I will see you guys in the next video.